It is 9:08 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. It's the 24th day of April 2025. This is episode 1081 of Bitcoin, and you're tuned in to figure out what the hell's going on in Bitcoin today. And there's a lot of stuff going on in Bitcoin today. We are not going to make any bones about it. We're going to jump right in with this one from Bitcoin Magazine, written by Nick. University of Hesperides launches the first Spanish language master's program focused exclusively on Bitcoin. And we'll get into what the hell University of Hesperides is here in a second, because I never heard of it before. You probably never heard of it before, but it's not going to be Harvard that actually does this kind of thing first, right? They're going to dabble in it. They're going to, bandy around it a little bit. MIT is pretty much the one place that I would imagine that is a huge university that would, in fact, embrace this kind of thing. They have the MIT Bitcoin Club, for God's sakes. But generally speaking, major universities are not going to be the people that put in place a Bitcoin-focused program. Not first. They're going to be mostly last. It's going to be small universities like Hesperides that does this, and they are an institution known for, of all things, classical, liberal, academic philosophy. And when we say classical liberal, we're not talking about the hair on fire folks that are running around stacking bricks in the middle of streets so that they can go on a riot. And we've seen all manner of people getting this the wrong way when we talk about classical liberal arts. It does not mean what you think it means. It means English and literature and philosophy. It was actually part of what was called natural science before we had a schism between arts and sciences, right? Or rather, arts and sciences had a schism. All right. You used to go to university for engineering a lot, and we're talking hundreds of years ago, right? And engineering, the only way that you would be a functional engineer, and I'm talking like, no, you're not building jet engines in the 1600s. You had to understand how to communicate first. So English literature, or literature, whatever country you're in, that was a thing. Being able to think properly, that's why they had philosophy. And then you started getting into the mathematics. And then you started getting into the sciences part. And then you would be able to traverse over into the engineering disciplines, whatever those were at the time. Generally speaking, engineers first started being engineers when they were digging underneath castles to ultimately, fell castle walls or plant bombs. That's where engineering came from, was siege engines. Back in the dark ages and shit like that, digging under castle walls, trying to topple those walls by destroying its foundation. That was what engineering was. But you really had to be able to think properly before you did that. That is generally speaking a classical, liberal, academic, scholarly path, right? And somewhere around, I want to say the late 1800s, engineering split off from all the rest of it. And that's why we have the College of Arts and Sciences in most universities, or in some cases, the Department of Arts and Sciences. Generally, it's a college when you're talking about a university. And then you have the College of Engineering. Those used to be rammed together. It was all one thing back in the day. And we don't have that anymore, right? So that's what we're talking about when we talk about classical liberal academic philosophies. But anyway, the University of Hesperides has launched the first ever master's program in Spanish dedicated exclusively to Bitcoin, according to an exclusive press release sent to Bitcoin Magazine. Starting April 28th of 2025, the fully online program aims to prepare professionals with the technical, economic, legal, and philosophical tools needed to lead in the Bitcoin era. Quote, without sound education, we risk continued misunderstanding and underutilization of its potential. This program is intended to close that gap and train professionals who can engage with Bitcoin responsibly and knowledgeably said Alvaro de Maria, director of the program and author of The Philosophy of Bitcoin. The Masters in Bitcoin is designed as an interdisciplinary curriculum covering Bitcoin's philosophy, history, economics, technology, regulation, and business development. It promises to offer students a complete view of Bitcoin, not just as a speculative asset, but as a transformative monetary network. Quote, Bitcoin is the most important monetary revolution in decades. Well, I'd say in thousands of years, honestly, but it will shape our future. We must be ready to use it to defend our freedoms against the state. That's why at Hesperides University, we see this program as essential, said Juan Ramon Rayo, dean of the undergraduate school and a leading economist specializing in Austrian theory and Bitcoin. The program is structured to answer practical and foundational questions like, what makes Bitcoin unique amongst digital assets? What technological and economic principles underpin the protocol? How do regulatory frameworks impact its adoption? And what skills are most in demand across Bitcoin native firms? Geared towards entrepreneurs, engineers, economists, lawyers, and investors, the curriculum combines theoretical instruction with practical insights. Students will participate in masterclasses, case studies, and seminars, learning from experts who work directly in the Bitcoin industry. The faculty includes a roster of Bitcoin experts and instructors such as Kristina Mazankova, the Bitcoin Conference, or I guess she's from the Bitcoin Conference, I'm not exactly sure, Manuel Polejeva, monetary theory, Killian Rausch from Boltz Exchange, Manu Ferrari, and it just says Money on Chain. I don't know if that's a book or not, Sergio Fernandez, and Decentralized, a prominent educator in the space. I guess that Decentralized is a NIM. Institutional backing further strengthens the program. Key partners include BTC Incorporated, Jan3, that's Samson Moe's outfit, BTC Consulting 360, Watch Out Bitcoin, Negocios TV, and the Institute of Philosophy and Economics of Bitcoin. This network ensures that the curriculum stays closely aligned with industry needs while offering students pathways to professional opportunities. The program is accessible to international students and working professionals alike, delivered fully online and entirely in Spanish. So if you're only, monolingual in English like I am, you're probably going to have a tough time. But it does allow students to pursue academic depth without compromising their existing responsibilities. Enrollment is now open, and you can visit their website here, and here is a link, and the link to this story will be in the show notes in case you want to go check that out more. Here is what was not said, and I'm sure you're asking, where the hell is this place? I've never heard of University of the Hesperides. It sounds Greek. Literally, it sounds like it's Greek. It's not. It's Spanish. It's in the Canary Islands, and it's on an island called Las Palmas. Yeah, it's funny because I just got finished watching. It's either on Netflix or HBO Max or something like that. Yeah, I think it was like a 4-part miniseries called Las Palmas, and the TV show is a Norwegian television show. And it's about a whole bunch of Norwegians that go to Las Palmas. They're on vacation, and while they're there, this giant volcano that is in fact on the island of Las Palmas basically cracks in half, and half of the island slides into the ocean, and it creates this giant tsunami. It was really it was actually really interesting. It's English dubbed, so yes, the lips are kind of out of sync when you're watching people talk, but it's honestly, it's actually a very good production. I highly recommend watching it. As far as the science as to what's going on the island of Las Palmas, I'm not sure just how accurate it is. They keep talking about the history of a 1949 eruption that happened on that volcano, and there's some kind of crack, and I don't know, they get a little far. I think they might be getting a little far-fetched. I'm not exactly sure how much this crack is a potential, but if I were to just get all my knowledge from this TV show, which I'm not going to do, then this crack, if for whatever reason part of this island slides into the ocean, it could be pretty bad for all the coastlines in the Atlantic Ocean. But be that as it may, there's another thing about Las Palmas that you should understand. It's basically off the coast of Morocco. This place is gorgeous. It's like, you know how like a bunch of Bitcoiners went to the Maldives? I'm thinking this may be a Bitcoiner entry point into a different different Mediterranean locale, even though it's Mediterranean climate. It's not in the Mediterranean, but it's Mediterranean climate. It's gorgeous. There's this university here. We got a whole bunch of Bitcoiners. It looks like they may be taking root. We're like weeds, man. We're worse than viruses. We're like weeds. Our seeds just blow on the wind over ocean and yon, and there are no barriers. We will end up putting roots down everywhere, and it looks like University of Hesperides is next on the list. Okay, a couple of short notes here. BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF has seen a $643 million worth of inflow into it. Let's get into this one. I'm just going to get just a little bit of a overview here. BlackRock's flagship Bitcoin ETF attracted $643 million of net inflows on one day. That was yesterday, marking its strongest single-day performance since January the 21st. The substantial inflow comes as Bitcoin continues its upward momentum. So there you go. But if we were to actually look at all of the Bitcoin ETFs and what they've done, over like on April the 23rd or through April the 24th, it looks like that in total, that Bitcoin ETFs have brought in $917 million. Yes, no, this is just on April the 23rd. So yesterday, almost $1 billion flowed into Bitcoin ETFs. So do with that whatever the hell you want. And it also happens that Metaplanet has bought yet more Bitcoin. They've added an additional 1.92 billion yen worth of Bitcoin. And they, for that price, were able to acquire an additional 145 Bitcoin. And they have brought they've brought their holdings to half of their goal. They are already at 5,000 BTC in total holdings. So Metaplanet is not backing down at all. Okay, so yesterday's big news was Jack Mallers being named the CEO of a company called 21. And it was backed by Binance and Tether and SoftBank and Cantor Fitzgerald. And for anybody who thinks it's like, because people are looking at like charts, Cantor charts, trying to figure out which Cantor is it? Because Cantor Equities Group, they blasted off and somebody was like going, well, wait a minute. Is this Cantor? Is this a different Cantor? Is this Cantor Fitzgerald? Who is it? It's Cantor Fitzgerald, guys. This is not a small player on the block, but Cantor, the stock, has skyrocketed 130% as traders immediately FOMO'd into the stock on the Bitcoin SPAC frenzy. Shares of Cantor Equity Partners, which is representing Cantor Fitzgerald, surged 55% on Tuesday and are up an additional 15% in pre-market trading, which is trading below $19 a share. The skyward movement was driven by investor optimism around its proposed merger with 21 Capital, a Bitcoin native investment vehicle backed by Tether, Bitfinex, and SoftBank. I'm pausing to say, I did not get the sense that this was a merger. At this point, I'm a bit confused. I guess that's because there's still the fog of war is still kind of present. We're not exactly sure what the hell's going on. But if Cantor Fitzgerald is actually merging with 21 Capital, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that this is correct, because that means that Jack Mallers would be CEO of that, wouldn't it? If they merged and just into 21 Capital and Jack Mallers was named CEO yesterday of 21. I don't know, man. Like I said, I think the fog of war is a little thick here, so take it with a grain of salt. But led by Strike CEO Jack Mallers and Brandon Lutnick, 21 Capital is being positioned as a public proxy for Bitcoin, potentially holding over 42,000 Bitcoin at launch and introducing metrics like Bitcoin per share, or BPS, and Bitcoin return rate, or BRR, to measure shareholder value in BTC terms. Let's pause just a second to talk about KPI, a key performance indicators, right? That's what KPI means. And we had the first KPI that was Bitcoin based come out of the mouth of Michael Saylor a few months, actually not a few months ago, more than a good couple of fistfuls a month ago. He started talking about this BTC yield per share or whatever, and that was his key performance indicator. Well, we're going to see more key performance indicators come online as more and more of these things get spun up. But according to the latest pro forma ownership tables, Tether will control 42.8% of equity and 51.7% of voting power, while Bitfinex and SoftBank hold 16% and 24% of the company respectively post-conversion. Public SPAC holders will retain a mere 2.1 or 2.7% ownership, underscoring the extreme dilution but significant upside if BTC rises. With BTC trading near 94,000 and the entity holding nearly $4 billion in BTC exposure, investors are re-rating CEP as a high leverage bet on institutional Bitcoin adoption. The stock is set to relist under the ticker XXI once the merger is finalized. So CEP is Cantor Equity Partners, I think is what it was. Cantor Equity Partners, or CEP. It's the extreme dilution that worries me. I'm okay. There are a lot of people that are losing their shit about this entire deal. I've seen some really bad things already said about Mallers. I honestly think that the kid's capable, dude. You don't build something like Strike essentially, out of pulling it out of an idea out of your mind and doing all the things necessary to make that thing a reality. And yeah, he had help to do it. Once he pulled it out of his head, he had to shop it around. That was the initial work. And people said, this is a good idea. Let's back this kid. And all of a sudden, kid's got money. What does he do with the money? Well, he doesn't spend it on himself. He goes out and he hires people that he would probably think are smarter than him. That's the other side of the work. And then they all work together as a team and they made Strike what it is. That's not somebody who's incapable. That's somebody who can execute. Kind of tired of seeing Jack Mallers get shit on. And I'm also kind of tired of people whining and crying about how this is not what was meant for Bitcoin. Unless you built it yourself, you don't know what the fuck was meant for Bitcoin. I'm sorry to say that, but you don't. And neither do I. All right, Bitcoin is for enemies. That is the one thing that I'm sure of. And if Bitcoin is for enemies, that means anybody can hold it, anybody can buy it, anybody can do whatever the hell they want. If they could buy it and send it to a burn address, and I wouldn't be able to stop them. That's the point. That's the point. What you're seeing with all this strategy and Misty and MSTR and Cantor Fitzgerald and Binance and Tether and all this stuff, and the convertible notes, you can't stop it. This is what was always going to happen. But it doesn't mean that we knew that it was going to happen. And it also doesn't mean that you have to like it. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, if Bitcoin is what we really think it is, then what we're watching right now, was always inevitable. So I shed zero tears about this. All I can do is figure out which way the wind is blowing. And right now, the wind is blowing directly towards institutional and sovereign wealth funds, saying that they want as much Bitcoin as they can possibly get. And your first response to that statement should be, but it's mostly paper Bitcoin. Probably, but we don't know. And we're probably not going to be able to know, because that's one of the other issues about Bitcoin, is that if you do it right, pretty damn private, but you got to do it right. All right. It's the whole ledger's transparent, but if you do it correctly, it's possible that there's a whole bunch of wallets out there held by giant wealth funds that we don't know anything about. I'm just saying, man, I think everybody needs to calm down. But one thing that I will say is that getting back to the shareholder dilution situation, I don't like that, but there's nothing that I can do about it. If I was a shareholder in Cantor Equity Partners, I'd be pissed that I got my ass diluted right down to 2.7%. And that would be all of it, like all of the shareholders that were pre-existing before this shit happened. It looks like they got diluted out the wazoo, and they better start buying Bitcoin themselves to help support the price so that they can realize and get back to what they actually had equity-wise in Cantor Equity Partnership, because they basically just got blown the fuck out, right? And I see it almost as a company cannibalizing their own shareholders in order to pivot. And pivot they must. And that's probably why their shareholders got BFTD. Okay. After reading that, I'm feeling a little dirty. You know what's coming, don't you? I'm feeling a little nasty. Maybe I could get some soap from my buddy Soap Miner. And you could get a 10% discount at Soap Miner off of everything, off of all your purchases if you use Bitcoin and as the coupon code. Bitcoin and, all one word. It's Bitcoin and. That's the coupon code. I just tagged somebody today on Nostr who had made a post, said that he was jumping on the bandwagon, the Soap Miner bandwagon, because everybody's talking about it and everybody is. And he bought like $38 worth of soap, and I just tagged him and I said, hey, did you use the Bitcoin and code to get 10% off of your entire purchase? And he wrote back saying, did I just leave sats on the table? You bet you did. You betcha. And it so happens that Soap Miner, and you can find Soap Miner at soapminer.com. That's soapminer.com. Again, that is Soap Miner. He mines soap.com. He's got 3 new scents available. They just dropped yesterday. He's got a new scent called Fresh Breeze Tallow, because these are still 100% beef tallow made bars. He's got lemongrass tallow, and this one is really interesting. Orange and clove tallow bars. Now, these bars of soap are like $7, $7.50, and $8 bars of soap. And you may ask, why the hell would I want to do that? Well, because you're going to support the Plebs and the Circle P. The Circle P is open for business. The Circle P is where I bring plebs with goods and services to plebs just like you that want to buy those goods and services. You may have never heard of Soap Miner before, or any of the other vendors in the Circle P. Maybe you do want their goods and services. Maybe you do want to try their products, but you would never know about it if I didn't have an advertisement for them. And I do them live. I'm not even live reading. I'm just ranting right now as part of an advertisement, because Soap Miner kicks me back Satoshis for every sale I make. And I know that people are like going, oh, you've got an affiliate code. Do you know why that exists? That's so that the vendor, in this case Soap Miner, can tell if I'm actually effective as, making sales for them. And as long as I'm effective at making sales for Soap Miner knows to throw me some sats. How else would he be able to track performance? It's a KPI, right? That's why we have affiliate codes, so that the vendor knows where the sale was made from. And I don't know why people lose their ever-loving minds over that kind of stuff. It's not an affiliate. Yes, it's an affiliate code because I'm hoping to get a little bit off the top of what Soap Miner does. But then again, Soap Miner's able to leverage my audience. And I'm not going to bring you crap. I use this soap. It is the cleanest soap I've ever used. And I'm going to be ordering Fresh Breeze Tallow in a 5-ounce bar, lemongrass tallow in a 5-ounce bar, and orange clove tallow in a 5.5-ounce bar. Why? Because I love the guy's products. So make sure you use Bitcoin and for 10% off. That's Bitcoin and 10% off at soapminer.com. Do it today. Get away clean. Trump has fought the bond market. The bond market won, according to Saifedean Ammous, Zoltan Vardai, Cointelegraph. Analysts are criticizing the financial implications of U.S. President Donald Trump's import tariffs, a development that some say highlights Bitcoin's unique economic properties during times of global uncertainty. Yeah, you spelled landfill fire wrong, brother. This is beyond a dumpster fire. This is a landfill fire. But Trump's 90-day pause on higher reciprocal tariffs, reverting them to a 10% baseline for most countries, except China, has exposed vulnerabilities in the United States bond market, according to critics. Economist and author of the Bitcoin Standard, Saifedean Ammous, said Trump's decision to reverse the higher tariffs was likely a reaction to rising bond yields, suggesting the administration's hand was forced. Quote, Trump fought the bond market and the bond market won, Ammous said in an April 23rd Twitter post. Quote, this gambit seemed to work for the first day, and the huge crash in the stock market was presented as a small price to pay for fiscal sustainability, but then the bonds began to crash. And it became clear how disastrous the tariffs were and how wrong it was to expect that deliberately crashing the stock market would boost the bond market, he added. And here is the entire post from Saifedean Ammous, The Art of the Cave. Trump fought the bond market and the bond market won. Since getting into office, Trump and Bissett have relentlessly spoken about wanting to bring interest rates down and wanting to manage the U.S. debt sustainably. Countless Trump-aligned economists and influencers explained that the goal of the tariffs was to bring bond yields down, even if it meant crashing the stock market. The gambit seemed to work for the first day, and the huge crash in the stock market was presented as a small price to pay for fiscal sustainability. But then the bonds began to crash, and it became clear how disastrous the tariffs were and how wrong it was to expect that deliberately crashing the stock market would boost the bond market. It is a cargo cult economic. People observe a reverse correlation between bonds and stocks, and so they assume that anything that crashes stocks must boost bonds. And there's no reason to suppose that the normal gyrations of market participants managing risk and allocations would hold when the government sabotages the financials of all the country's businesses with reckless tariffs. Ultimately, bond yields are a function of the ability of the government to pay its debts. As its credit worthiness declines, yields rise. If taxpayers lose a lot of wealth, they pay less taxes, and the government's fiscal situation deteriorates. Tariffs made American businesses start revising profit estimates, considering downsizing, and reversing business plans, and crashed their stocks. And that's the end of his post. Back to the article in question. Following Trump's tariff announcement, CNBC data shows that the 10-year Treasury yield surged from under 4% to 4.5% amid a sell-off driven by inflation and recession concerns. Quote, the rise in yields was the exact opposite of what the administration wanted, and reversing course on the tariffs half a day after they go into effect was absolutely devastating for Trump's negotiating position, Ammous said. Some analysts, including global macro investor founder Raoul Pal, I hate that dude, have suggested the tariff maneuvering may only be posturing for the United States to reach a trade agreement with China. Pausing to say, I actually have to agree with Raoul Pal there. And he's a shitcoiner extraordinaire, but I actually align with that. I think this is all about China. And I think bond yields and crashing the stock market were both on the table for the Trump administration because he wants to figure out how to sit down with China. I don't think it did him very well to reverse tariffs, a couple of days after he put these tariffs on everybody. But in my view, it was sending a signal to China saying, look, brother, this is not about them. This is about me and you sitting down at the table. What are we going to do here? Anyway, quote, all the talk about China buckling under the threat of Trump now sounds hilarious in retrospect when Trump could not keep his tariffs in place for 2 days, Ammous said, adding that China showed absolutely no inclination to reach out and strike a deal. Delays in reaching a trade agreement may limit the recovery of both equity and cryptocurrency markets, which hinge on the outcomes of the trade negotiations, according to Nansen Analytics. Meanwhile, Bitcoin is acting less like a tech stock and more like a hedge against economic uncertainty, after Trump signaled a substantial reduction in tariffs on Chinese goods, Nexo dispatched analyst Ilya Kalchev told Cointelegraph. The situation has revived long-standing proposals to back the U.S. dollar with Bitcoin. Amos said the U.S. should keep buying BTC until the government holds enough to fully back the dollar supply, ultimately switching to a Bitcoin standard. Quote, keep buying Bitcoin until the value of the Bitcoin held by the government is enough to back the entirety of the U.S. dollar supply, and then go on a Bitcoin standard where dollars are redeemable for Bitcoin and have the government never spend more than it earns, end quote. Good luck. Historically, the dollar was backed by gold and redeemable for a fixed amount of the precious metal until 1933, when President Franklin D. Roosevelt suspended gold convertibility in response to the Great Depression. And in 1971, Richard Nixon halted the dollar's convertibility into gold, aiming to protect U.S. gold reserves and stabilize the economy, marking the beginning of the fiat currency system that remains in place today. Bitcoin's fixed supply, which is hard-coded in its, tokenomics, makes it a popular digital competitor to gold. Joe Burnett, director of market research at Unchained, predicted that Bitcoin may rival or surpass gold's market capitalization in the next decade, projecting that Bitcoin's price will surpass $1.8 million by 2035. Okay, there we go. There was one thing that Amos said here that I want to touch on a little bit. He says the United States should keep buying BTC until the government holds enough to fully back the dollar supply, ultimately switching to a Bitcoin standard. I had a thought the other day as to how is it that Tether is going to ultimately be backed by Bitcoin. I think the following is not outside the realm of possibility. Tether continues buying United States Treasury bonds, as many as they want to print, and they're going to monetize all that debt into the cryptocurrency or the stablecoin or stable currency called Tether. And that's going to be exported all over the globe, which means that the United States debt is going to immediately leave the United States and be exported all over the globe. And it's going to let the dollar just have a nice new free pasture to roam around and graze in for quite a while. How long? I don't know. But at one point or another, it seems to me that the United States dollar is just going to end. It's going, or at least end as a world reserve currency. Tether at that point will be in a position to switch from backing Tether by US dollars to backing Tether by Bitcoin and stop buying United States Treasury bonds. If that shit happens, watch out. Because I don't even know what the effects of just automatically turning off the switch, because they're the 7th largest buyer right now. In 10 years, they could literally be buying at rates of the 3rd largest buyer, 2nd, 1st only. Wouldn't surprise me one bit if they started purchasing. They're the only purchaser of U.S. debt. And then one day said, you know what? We're not doing this anymore. We're backing Tether. All the Tether that's in circulation today is going to be backed by the total circulating supply of Bitcoin at the time. And then we will release more Tether that's tied directly to the mining of Bitcoin until its end in 2135 or 2140, I believe is when mining is actually going to, or the subsidy, the creation of new Bitcoin is actually going to stop. What I've just said is not outside the realm of possibility. Chew on it, figure out where I'm wrong, and let me know. And it doesn't mean that I think I'm right. I do kind of think I'm right. But I don't think that's the only answer. I think that there's probably very serious holes in that theory, and I want to know your thoughts as to where they are. And while you figure out where they are, let's run the numbers. Futures and commodities, CNBC.com. I got oil, West Texas Intermediate is not getting pounded today, but, 0.71% to the upside. 62.71 a barrel. Brent North Sea is up a half to 66.49. Natural gas taking a beating, 3 points to the downside to $2.93. And that's because natural gas inventories rose to a record rate. I guess it's just too damn warm and nobody's burning natural gas to, produce electricity with. Who knows? But gasoline is up a point to $2.10 a gallon. Gold is up 1.5 points to $33.43.80. Silver is down 0.16. Platinum is up 0.19. Copper is up almost a half. Palladium is up just barely over 3 full points. Mixed ag futures today. Looks like chocolate. No, just got beat by coffee. 3.49% for coffee puts it in the leader. And we've got 0.71% to the downside for rough rice. That is our loser for the day. Live cattle is crawling sideways. Lean hogs down 0.4%. Feeder cattle also crawling sideways. The Dow, however, rallying today by 434 points after a 1.09% gain. S&P is up 1.8%. NASDAQ is up 2.5%. S&P is up 2.1%. And all of the United States Treasury bonds have gained in face value. What does that mean? That means the yields have been suppressed as of today. The 10-year is down 1.55%, yielding 4.31%. The 30-year is down just over 1 point, yielding 4.77%. So yields are coming down because there is dovish talk out of the Trump administration when it comes to these trade tariffs and whatnot. So I don't know. I haven't really heard a whole lot coming out of the news agencies about what the hell's going on. I mean, is China even returning our emails? I literally don't know, and I kind of don't give a shit. $93,130 is the price of Bitcoin as of right now, and it looks like we're in a slight downturn. Yeah, we're losing some price here. Let me go back to TradingView and see what's going on, because we were at 93.6 about 10 minutes ago, and we are, according to TradingView, we are at $93,108. We're dropping $93,012 just now. Let's see what they do. Yeah, still dropping 93,001. I have no idea what was going on, because for about 8 straight hours we were just doing nothing but on the rise. We are now below $92,000. So I'm sure somebody somewhere figured it out. Maybe it has something to do with the housing news. Housing purchases are the lowest since like 2009. The housing data literally just came out last hour. This may be a reaction to that. I don't know. But it is still a $1.85 trillion market cap. We can get 27.8 ounces of shiny metal rocks with our 1 Bitcoin, of which there are 19,855,382 of. Oh my God, and average fees per block are sky high at 1 full tenth of a Bitcoin. 1/10 of a Bitcoin taken in fees on a per block basis. Looks to be about 18 blocks carrying 17,000 unconfirmed transactions waiting to clear at high priority rates of 2 Satoshis per VByte. Low priority is going to get you in at 2 Satoshis per VByte. And minor capitulation, maybe. We are down to 815.8 exahashes per second. We'll just have to see how that goes. But the difficulty adjustment is coming when is the 9 days. And the difficulty adjustment is supposed to be downwards by 8.25%. So we may be seeing just a little bit of capitulation here from the mining set. Again, we will have to wait and see. And when it does happen, I'll probably make an episode, or it'll be on an episode, which I will then post to bitcoinandshow.com. That's bitcoinandshow.com. That's the website for the Bitcoin and podcast. I post everything up there. Go and sign up. I will not give your email to anyone. I will not sell your email to anyone. Your emails are mine, and I will keep them safe. Why? Because why would I give them out? That just doesn't make any sense. Again, Bitcoin and Show, all one word, .com, and from episode 1080 of Bitcoin and, entitled Resolution. Sats Venture gave me 1,000 sats, says daily Bitcoin news and great interviews. Definitely worth a listen. Show him some support on Fountain. Thank you, brother. Anonymous with 1,000 says, Bubba here, just in case Fountain decides I am a non for not doing what I'm told. Bubba. I love this guy. Anyways, I could have sworn legacy financial shit was old and the enemy. I guess this is what the fuck do I know. Good show as usual. God, I wish I could just be hip and shit. Bubba is my trucker friend from way back when I was on, not booted off of Twitter. Bubba, I appreciate it, brother. Good tidings to you and your wife. Happy trucking, my brother. Side Duck with 589 says, Side Duck. Yodel, 501, richest man in Babylon. I've heard good things. It's worth the listen. I don't know about reading it, but it's not that long. You can find it for free on YouTube. Go to YouTube, type in richest man in Babylon, and you will find the entire read. I think it's about 4 hours long. So it's not that much of an investment, and you can do it, while you're walking around the block or something like that. Richard Dick Whitman with 250 says, you can be CEO of 21 Whitman Capital. Woohoo! Man, I got it made. I am C-suite now, baby. Pies with 400, last boost for a while. Thank you, sir. No, thank you. Hey, Pies, you don't have to boost to stay within my orbit. Just throw me a couple of mentions or something like that. Maybe throw me a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts, and that goes for everybody. You don't cost you nothing but time, brother. Justin with 100 says, love the show. I'm running low on sats now that it is getting warm outside. So if you don't hear from me, please know I appreciate you. Thank you, Justin. I do appreciate you. God's Death with 237. Thank you, sir. No, thank you. Mark says, we'll watch a film on nostr.com later at Carnage at NunyaBidness. Yeah, Cantor, if you missed yesterday's show, Cantor.com, KINOSTR.com, Cantor.com. That's where you go to watch movies. Essentially, I don't want to drill down into it, but I'm just going to say it's movies on Nostr. Yes, using the Nostr protocol, we can now watch whole movies. Again, I'm not going to get into the weeds on how that works. Psyduck with 100 says, I think Flutey on Nostr accidentally zapped and replied to my boostagram on this episode thinking he was boosting you. I'm passing those sats along with an additional 79 of my own due to Fountain's minimum boost requirements. Flutey with 21 sats says, quote, you've become my favorite Bitcoin podcast. Appreciate all you do. See, this is what I'm talking about. It's like, Psyduck could have kept those sats. I wouldn't have cared. Psyduck, it would have been fine, brother, but somehow or another, Bitcoin seems to just be realigning why we do the things we do. And I just love the people in this space because they do shit like say, this was a mistake. I'm just, I'm going to do a little bit of work and I'm going to pass these sats on to you. Man, Psyduck, your brother from another mother. Pies with 100 says, thank you, sir. No, thank you. And DeFi Yogi says, tomorrow morning, first movement, listen, Bitcoin and the best in town. Congrats, as always, Dave. I think maybe it was congrats, but, hey, that's the weather report. Welcome to part 2 of the news that you can use. Ruya, RUYA, becomes the first Islamic bank to offer Bitcoin and virtual asset investments. This is written by Nick out of Bitcoin Magazine. In a landmark development for Islamic finance and digital banking, Ruya, the UAE's digital first Islamic bank, has become the first Islamic bank globally to offer customers direct access to virtual asset investments, including Bitcoin, through its mobile app, according to an announcement. The news service is made possible through a strategic partnership with Fuse, a licensed leader in virtual asset infrastructure. Together, Roya and Fuse aim to provide a secure and ethical entry point into the digital economy with services that are fully Sharia compliant and aligned with the principles of Islamic finance. Quote, at Roya, we are committed to transforming the financial landscape in the UAE by offering forward-thinking services while staying true to our mission of ethical Islamic banking, said Christopher Koster, CEO of Roya. Quote, by integrating virtual assets into our investment platform, we aim to empower our customers to participate in the digital economy. End quote. The launch comes at a time of rapid growth in the UAE's virtual asset sector. In the year ending June 2024, the country received more than $30 billion in virtual assets, marking a 42% year-on-year increase, significantly outpacing the regional average of 11.7. The move underscores the United Arab Emirates' emergence as a major hub for digital finance in the MENA region. Quote, partnering with Roya is a big step toward making virtual assets seamless, a seamless part of everyday banking, said Mohammed Ali Youssef, co-founder and CEO of Fuse. Together, we're combining Fuse's cutting-edge infrastructure with Roya's commitment to ethical Islamic banking. Unlike other platforms that encourage speculative crypto trading, Roya's offering is embedded within a curated investment framework designed to support long-term financial growth, the company stated in the announcement. It will focus on transparency, fairness, and ethical investing, core tenets of Islamic finance. To ensure accessibility and informed decision-making, Roya is also offering support through community centers and hybrid call centers where customers can receive expert guidance on virtual asset investing. All right, so what's so important about this? When they say is ethical Islamic financing, there's a reason. That's a thing. And that goes back to the Abrahamic religions. And there are two, well, there's two of them. Islam and Judaism. And they both look at the father. Both of those religions look at Abraham as the father of the religions, because Abraham was indeed the father of a couple of kids. And one kid was through his wife's slave girl at the time, and the other one was his own. And that represents a rift in the Abrahamic religion sect. And so Islam was born out of that, and then the Jews that were already the Jews, they went the way that they were going to go anyway. But both of these religions have certain things that have to be kosher, like what they eat. But more importantly, how they treat money and how they treat each other in the aspects of money and finance. Like, for instance, usury. That term is like what, and I can't remember what the Old Testament actually says, what percentage rate you can charge on a loan, or if you can charge any percentage rate. I think it's possible that usury is like you can lend money, but you can't take any money back over the principal that you lent out. That may be what it is. Usury laws in the United States used to say you cannot charge anybody more than 20%. And that went for credit cards and loans and all kinds of shit. Well, yeah, you know what I'm about to say. Credit cards basically blew past that. I see 24%, 25%. I've seen a 26% financing rate on a credit card. Don't get that shit, right? That's usury. That's against both of these religions, right? So the way that we do financing as a Christian country, we are allowed to do all manner of shit that would not fly in either Judaic traditions or Islamic traditions, because both of them developed the way they thought about money out of Abraham and what came before, right? So just that's why it's important. So now, and it's been said on several occasions that Bitcoin itself is Sharia compliant. And I'm not an expert, and I'm not going to pretend to be an expert, but it seems to me that kosher for Jews and Sharia for Islam is not the same, but it's reaching for the same idealistic standards, like a protocol, right? Like kosher, as far as I know, is more about food. I'm not sure about Sharia, if it has anything to do with food or if it's just the way to act. But, that said, like there are certain ways that you have to handle food if you are a quote unquote good Jew. There are protocols, and you do not do shit like store fish meat with the same place that you store your lamb meat. You don't do that, right? That is kosher, right? So, as far as I can tell, Sharia compliance is sort of along the same lines. Maybe not about food. I'm not sure what they do. Is that halal? Maybe halal or the Islamic rules about food. If I got any Islamic listeners and Jewish listeners out there, throw me a boostergram. Tell me how I'm screwing that up, because I'm sure I'm getting it completely wrong. But I'm trying, guys. I'm trying. From the Electric Frontier Foundation, Rindala Alajaji is writing this one. Florida's anti-encryption bill is a wrecking ball to privacy, but there's still time to stop it. I'm saddened to have to read this to you, ladies and gentlemen, but we've seen plenty of bad tech bills in recent years, often cloaked in vague language about online safety. But Florida's SB 868 does not even pretend to be subtle. The state wants a backdoor into encrypted platforms if minors use them, and for law enforcement to have easy access to your messages. Florida, you're going the wrong way. You're just going the wrong way, but this bill should set off serious alarm bells for anyone who cares about digital rights, secure communications, or simply the ability to message somebody privately without the government listening. Florida lawmakers aren't just chipping away at digital privacy, they're aiming a wrecking ball straight at it. SB 868 is a blatant attack on encrypted communication, and since we last wrote about the bill, the situation has gotten worse. The bill and its House companion have both sailed through their committees and are headed both to a full vote. That means that if passed, SB 868 would, 1, force social media platforms to decrypt teens' private messages, breaking into encryption. 2, ban disappearing messages, a common privacy feature that helps users, especially teenagers, control their digital footprint. 3, allow unrestricted parental access to private messages, overriding Florida's own two-party consent laws for surveillance. And 4, likely pressure platforms to remove encryption for all minors, which also puts everyone they talk to at risk. In short, if your kid loses their right to encrypted communication, so does everyone that they talk to, and there is no safe backdoor. If this all sounds impossible to do safely, that's because it is. There's no way to create a just for law enforcement access point into encrypted messages. Every backdoor becomes a vulnerability. It's only a matter of time before someone else, hacker, abuser, foreign government, finds it and uses it. Massive breaches like Salt Typhoon have already proven that surveillance tools don't stay in the right hands for very long. Encryption either protects everyone or it protects no one. We must protect it. Encryption isn't optional in today's internet. It's essential. It protects your banking info, your health data, your personal chats, and yes, your kids' safety online. And SB 868 pretends to protect children but does the opposite. Teens often need encrypted messaging to talk to trusted adults, friends, and family, and sometimes in high-stakes situations like abuse, mental health crises, or discrimination. Stripping away those safeguards make them more vulnerable, not less vulnerable, and investigators already have powerful tools to pursue serious crimes, including the ability to access device-level data and rely on user reports. In fact, studies show users reporting is more effective at catching online abuse than mass surveillance. So why push a bill that makes everyone less safe, weakens encryption, and invites lawsuits? That's a question we all deserve an answer to. Florida's SB 868 isn't just a bad bill, it's a dangerous blueprint for mass surveillance. So tell Florida legislatures SB 868 is unsafe, unworkable, and unacceptable. If you live in Florida, contact your lawmakers and demand that they reject this attack on encryption. If you are outside the state, you do not live in Florida, you can still speak out. Public pressure matters. And the more people who call out how egregious this bill is, the harder it becomes for lawmakers to quietly push it forward. Make sure that you follow us on social media, blah, 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 blah. I wish that they would have said, how can I take action if I live out of state? If I'm not a Floridian, how the hell do I tell Florida to go pound sand? Yeah, this is just bad. And I expected more from the guys over at Florida. You know, this is just tar and feathering needs to make a comeback, y'all. Meanwhile, sovereign wealth funds bought Bitcoin as retail got scared, according to a Coinbase executive, Vismaya V, writing for Decrypt. Institutional interest in Bitcoin intensified last month, even as retail investors reduced their exposure. Lettuce hands, guys. They were selling. The retail was selling to BlackRock. That's the takeaway of John D'Agostino, head of strategy at Coinbase Institutional, who told CNBC Squawk Box that, quote, pools of capital that have been buying during April included sovereign wealth funds, large institutional, long-term duration pools of capital, while Bitcoin exchange-traded funds saw net outflows. In April, he said, quote, Bitcoin ETF flows were net negative to the tune of about 470 million. Institutions, sovereigns, patient pools of capital were piling in, while retail via the ETF were exiting. End quote. The Coinbase executive said that the price action reflects Bitcoin's trading on its core characteristics, including scarcity, immutability, and portability, traits he likened to gold. Quote, when you do the work, there's a very short list of assets that mirrors the characteristics of gold. Bitcoin is on that short list. So retail got terrified and they started selling, and sovereign wealth funds and large institutions were gobbling it up. I'm just saying, if you can hold. Don't get scared right now, man. Don't get scared. Okay, so Russia's finance ministry and central bank is launching a crypto exchange for, get this, super qualified investors. A qualified investor in the United States generally means that you're not a moron and you've got like $1 million in assets. And you kind of talk to a broker and they kind of assess whether or not they want to work with you. And if they give you their stamp of approval, you're kind of a qualified investor. But that $1 million is sort of that's one of the gatekeeping mechanisms that they use so that plebs like you and me on the street never get ahead. Well, it looks like it's getting even worse in Russia, according to Nick out of Bitcoin Magazine. Russia's Ministry of Finance and the Bank of Russia are set to jointly launch a cryptocurrency exchange designed exclusively for super qualified investors as part of a broader effort to bring crypto operations into a formal regulatory framework, according to an RBC report. Quote, together with the central bank, we will launch a crypto exchange for super qualified investors. It's fucking ridiculous. Crypto assets will be legalized and crypto operations will be brought out of the shadows. Naturally, not within our country, but those operations that have been carried out today within the framework of the experimental legal regime, said Finance Minister Anton Sulyanov during a recent ministry meeting. The move follows a proposal by the central bank to introduce an experimental legal regime for 3 years, allowing a select group, I guess these are the super investors, to legally trade cryptocurrencies. The concept centers around a new investor category, super qualified investors, defined by strict wealth and income thresholds. Previously, the central bank suggested that this status be granted to individuals with at least 100 million rubles, I think, in securities or deposits, or an annual income exceeding 50 million rubles. However, the finance ministry has indicated that these requirements are not final. Quote, perhaps it will be in this format, or these indicators will be somehow adjusted in one direction or another. This is possible. I think there will be a wide range of discussions, says Osman Kebleov, Deputy Director of the Ministry's Financial Policy Department. The initiative is already gaining traction amongst financial institutions. In March, Vladimir Krikotin, Managing Director for Sales and Business Development at the Moscow Exchange, confirmed readiness to launch derivatives trading linked to cryptocurrencies, saying that the platform is at maximum level of readiness. We are at maximum level of readiness. Oh my God. And could begin operations this year. The St. Petersburg Stock Exchange has expressed similar ambitions. Quote, SPB Exchange supports initiatives aimed at expanding the investment opportunities of investors and diversifying their strategies. We plan to start trading products tied to the value of cryptocurrencies, while some firms see this as a transformative shift. Others remain skeptical. Igor, God, I love that name, Igor Danielenko, head of asset management of Renaissance Capital, dismissed crypto as a viable asset class. Quote, there are many ways to protect yourself from inflation without resorting to tokens without any real collateral, which depend on the influx of new buyers and are very similar to a pyramid scheme in essence. There's always going to be one. What's surprising about this is this is Russia making an about face on its stance on cryptocurrencies. They're doing it in a way that they save face by basically telling the plebs on the street that you're not worthy. I mean, Russia's authoritarian. Let's face it. I literally don't hate Russia. All these other people seem to just think Russia is evil. And I'm like, no, they're definitely authoritarian. And that in itself is kind of evil, but the people of Russia are generally not evil. But they're not going to be able to take part of it because 50 million rubles is probably a lot for an annual income. I don't know. I don't know how much a ruble is worth, and no, I'm not going to look. But it's an about face by Russia that a couple of years ago made all this stuff. They said it with high fanfare. We're making it all illegal. You can't trade it. And now Putin, about a couple of months ago, said, well, you can't stop Bitcoin, and said something about United States sanctions. And all of a sudden, here we are. And I still don't have a best friend named Igor. We all need a best friend named Igor. So I can say, Igor, come here. Okay, well, just to end this off, U.S. court is going to sentence former Celsius CEO Alex Mashinsky on May the 8th over fraud and manipulation charges. This is out of the block. The sentencing of former Celsius CEO Alex Mashinsky is scheduled for May 8th of this year, following his guilty plea on 2 criminal counts late last year, according to a New York District Court filing on Wednesday. So, yeah, he pled guilty, and they are going to sentence his ass. But in this story, which I will not read any more of, they don't say what he's facing. We know that Sam Bankman-Fried got 25 years, but we have no idea what Alex Mashinsky is going to get. And that dude, I'm sorry, if you weren't following what happened with Celsius, and this is all during FTX and BlockFi and Celsius and Alameda Research, that whole thing, Celsius was right alongside of it. Everything crumbled, and everybody was exposed for the frauds that they are. And Alex Mashinsky ended up being one of the top fraudsters that was out there. Now, we already knew that because he was pushing Celsius, which is a fraud shitcoin. It's just a shitcoin. It's designed to do nothing but steal your money. And it looks like he's going to go to prison, but I don't know for how long. All right. That's it. That's the show. Episode 1081 of Bitcoin And is in the bag, and I will see you on the other side.
This has been Bitcoin and I'm your host, David Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and hope to see you again real soon. Have a great day.